In Nigerian politics, when one person defects from the ruling party to the opposition, it is a story. When 10 people defect, it is a trend. When a former Attorney General of the Federation, a two-term Kano governor, the APC's 2023 Kano governorship candidate, a sitting Katsina senator, a former Zamfara senator, a Jigawa senator, a Kano media director, a Third Republic Kano governor, state-level government aides, local government chairmen, and 8 members of the House of Representatives all move from the APC to the ADC in the space of 12 months, it is not a trend. It is a structural collapse in slow motion. And the question that most Nigerian political commentary has failed to answer is not who is leaving. The list is public. The names are in the papers. The question that AFRONEWSHQ is asking today is the deeper one. Why are they leaving now? What specific combination of political pressures, personal calculations, and institutional incentives has produced the most significant exodus from a Nigerian ruling party in the pre-election period since the PDP began losing governors to the APC in 2013 and 2014? The answer has 5 layers, and each layer reveals something important not just about the APC's internal condition, but about what the 2027 election is actually going to be about. We are going to map all 5 layers today, precisely, with names, with dates, with the political logic that the departing politicians themselves have been unwilling to state plainly. Most channels will give you the names and the drama. We give you the architecture, the 5 structural reasons that explain every single defection on this list and what they mean together. Subscribe, because this is the analysis that tells you where Nigeria's 2027 election is actually heading before the campaigns have even opened. Building the full picture before the analysis, names, dates, and profiles. Before AFRONEWSHQ analyzes why they left, let us establish who has left with the precision that this subject demands, because the pattern of defections is not random. The geographic concentration, the political profiles, and the timing of specific exits tell you more about the APC's structural vulnerabilities than any official party statement. The Northern Heavyweight Departures. Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation under President Buhari for 8 years. Malami was one of the most powerful figures in the Buhari administration. He resigned from the APC in July 2025 and joined the ADC coalition, publicly citing insecurity, economic hardship, and poor governance under the Tinubu administration. He subsequently attended the ADC National Convention on April 14, 2026, and described the party as a formidable platform to rescue Nigeria. He is currently facing money laundering charges, allegations he denies, involving approximately 800 billion naira in recovered funds. We will address the legal pressure dimension in Section 4. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, former 2-term governor of Kano State, former Minister of Defense under President Jonathan, 2023 presidential candidate who received 1.5 million votes. Kwankwaso resigned from the New Nigerian People's Party on March 30, 2026, and formally joined the ADC. His defection is the single most strategically significant event in the ADC coalition's coalition-building effort, not because of his personal vote total, but because of what he brings. The Kwankwasia movement's estimated 1.5 million ward-level members, Kano's most organized political machine, and the credibility that makes the ADC's northern ticket calculation viable. Nasiru Yusuf Gawuna, the APC's 2023 governorship candidate in Kano, former deputy governor, former chairman of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, a position he resigned on March 31, 2026, in compliance with President Tinubu's directive for political appointees to step down. He formally joined the ADC the same day at a ceremony attended by Kwankwaso and thousands of Kano supporters. The Deputy Senate President, Barau Jibrin, has been publicly accused by an APC faction of deliberately sidelining Gawuna, a claim that speaks to the internal APC politics that made his departure inevitable. Kabiru Marafa, former senator representing Zamfara Central and one of the most prominent APC voices in the Northwest. Marafa resigned from the APC in August 2025, publicly accusing President Tinubu of neglecting Zamfara state despite the state's contribution to the 2023 presidential victory. He formally joined the ADC in April 2026 after a strategic stakeholders meeting in Kaduna, directing his entire political structure and support network to register with the ADC and mobilize at the ward level across Zamfara. Senator Ahmed Babba-Kaita, a sitting senator from Katsina state, who publicly switched allegiance from the APC to the ADC, adding a serving National Assembly member to the coalition's legislative footprint. Senator Sabo Mohammed Nakudu, former lawmaker representing Jigawa Southwest in the 9th National Assembly, who formally resigned from the APC and received his ADC membership card at a mass gathering in Dutse, Jigawa. Political observers note he may contest the 2027 Jigawa governorship on the ADC platform. Kabiru Gaya, former governor of Kano State during the botched Third Republic, resigned from the APC on April 5, 2026 and joined the ADC, adding a historic Kano political figure to the coalition's northern architecture. Saliu Tanku Yakasai, former Director General of Media and Communications to Governor Abdullahi Ganduje of Kano, one of the most prominent APC media figures in the north, resigned from the APC in March 2026 and aligned with the ADC coalition. The legislative defections. On March 31, 2026, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, read out the notices of 27 federal lawmakers defecting across parties, one of the largest single-session defection events in the Green Chamber's recent history. Of those 27, 8 moved specifically to the ADC, 5 from the PDP, 2 from the Labour Party, and 1 directly from the APC. While the APC gained 14 lawmakers in the same session, primarily from the Kano's NNPP delegation, the ADC's gain of 8 representatives represents a measurable legislative presence that it did not have 12 months ago. The grassroots and sub-national level. Below the headline names, the defection pattern extends into state and local government structures across the Northwest and North Central. In Jigawa alone, the former Ringim local government area chairman, Shegu Sule Udi, a close ally of former Governor and Minister of Defense Muhammad Badaru Abubakar, formally defected to the ADC, citing the APC's deviation from its founding principles. The Special Advisor on Trade and Investment to the Jigawa State Governor, Mustafa Fatoma Ringim, resigned his advisory role on April 3, 2026 and aligned with the ADC coalition. In Zamfara, Marafa directed thousands of supporters through ward-level registration exercises. In Sokoto, the ADC's State Congress in early April drew large numbers of political actors repositioning from multiple parties. The specific pressure that the Tinubu administration's institutional enforcement apparatus, EFCC, ICPC, DSS, has applied to prominent defectors and what that pressure reveals about the political dynamics of the defection wave will be mapped later. Why the defections are disproportionately concentrated in the Northwest, Kano, Katsina, Zamfara, Jigawa, rather than distributed evenly across the country, is the geographic pattern that tells you the most about where the APC's 2027 Northern Coalition is most vulnerable. That analysis will be touched as we go on. Reason 1. The patronage disappointment, what they expected and did not receive. The APC was not built on ideology, it was built on political logic of displacement, a coalition of interests that converged around removing President Jonathan in 2015, whose cohesion was maintained by the distribution of federal patronage, ministerial appointments, board positions, federal contractor relationships, FAAC allocation flows, and the administrative protection that comes with ruling party membership at the federal level. The Tinubu APC is a fundamentally different patronage structure from the Buhari APC. Buhari's patronage distribution was largely northern-oriented, with a specific tilt toward the core north and the northeast. Tinubu's patronage distribution is oriented around his personal political network, his Lagos political allies, his southwest base, and the specific federal constituency he has built over 30 years of Lagos political dominance. The politicians now leaving the APC are predominantly the figures whose patronage expectations from the Tinubu administration have not been met. Gawuna expected continued political relevance in Kano after losing the governorship. He was sidelined internally. Marafa expected federal investment in Zamfara that he publicly described as non-existent despite the state's 2023 presidential contribution. The local government chairmen and state-level political advisors living in Jigawa are communicating precisely the same message. The return on their APC loyalty under Tinubu has not matched the cost of that loyalty. This is not unique to the Tinubu administration. Every ruling party that transitions from one president's faction to another loses a layer of patronage recipients whose political interests were served by the outgoing president's network and who must recalculate under the incoming network. What is notable about the current defection wave is its speed, its geographic concentration in the north, and its extension to figures as senior as a former AGF and a two-term governor, figures whose patronage expectations were at a level of seniority that the Tinubu administration should have been most motivated to meet. Reason 2, the economic grievance, when the ruling party's economic record becomes a political liability. Abubakar Malami's stated reason for leaving the APC is insecurity, economic hardship, and poor governance is the official public language of a political defection, but it is public language that reflects a real political calculus. In a country where fuel prices have risen to levels that have compressed household incomes across every income class, where the naira has lost a documented proportion of its purchasing power, and where inflation has made basic food items inaccessible to the majority of working Nigerians, membership in the ruling party is an increasingly expensive political identity. Politicians whose constituencies are directly bearing the weight of the cost of living crisis and whose voters hold them personally responsible for the governing party's economic record face a specific electoral survival pressure. Remaining in the APC means being associated with economic policies that have produced hardship that is visible, daily, and personally felt by the voter who will decide the politician's 2027 fate. The ADC offers an escape from that association, a platform that allows the politician to reframe themselves as part of the solution rather than the cause. Senator Tambuwal of Sokoto South articulated this logic directly at the ADC's Sokoto State Congress. If things are improving, that would be understandable, but when key indicators such as security and the economy are under pressure, it raises questions about the real motivations behind these moves. He was questioning APC defections in the other direction, but his logic applies symmetrically. Politicians defect toward the platform that their personal electoral survival calculation says gives them the best 2027 outcome. When the economy is under pressure and the ruling party owns that economy's performance, defection away from that ruling party is rational self-preservation. Reason 3. The 2027 ticket calculation, the Tinubu re-election directive, and its political fallout. President Tinubu issued a directive to political appointees with electoral ambitions to resign their positions in compliance with the Electoral Act's provisions on political activity. The directive, while legally sound, had an unintended political consequence. It forced every APC political appointee with 2027 ambitions to make a binary choice: resign from their federal appointment and stay in the APC to contest, or resign and use the freedom of that departure to recalculate their platform. For figures like Gawuna, whose 2027 Kano governorship ambition is well documented, the resignation directive created the institutional opening for a platform recalculation that his APC internal dynamics were already making necessary. The directive did not cause his defection, the sidelining within Kano APC caused it, but the directive provided the procedural occasion that made the departure administratively smooth. More broadly, the 2027 ticket calculation is driving defections at every level of the APC because the APC's internal primary structure is increasingly being perceived as a Tinubu-controlled environment that advantages actors aligned with the president's personal network and disadvantages those whose bases are independent of his Southwest coalition. A politician from the Northwest who concludes that the APC's 2027 primary process will not deliver him a competitive ticket faces a straightforward calculation: contest on a platform where his base is a liability or move to a platform where his base is an asset. The most significant geographic signal in the defection map is the Northwest concentration, and here is exactly what it tells you. Of the senior-level APC defections to the ADC, the overwhelming majority are from Kano, Katsina, Zamfara, and Jigawa, the Northwest states that delivered the bulk of Tinubu's 2023 northern vote. This is not coincidence. The Northwest was the APC's most important electoral engine in 2023. The Kano political network, the Zamfara political structure, the Jigawa patronage machinery, these were the northern components of the coalition that produced Tinubu's 8.8 million national vote total. Their departure from the APC does not simply add bodies to the ADC's coalition, it surgically removes the specific infrastructure that the APC built its 2023 northern delivery on. The defection wave is not a general exodus from the APC, it is a targeted withdrawal of the APC's northern electoral engine, and it is being absorbed directly into the opposition coalition that is simultaneously building the Kwankwaso Atiku ticket. Reason 4. The ADC's growing credibility. The platform has become viable. In 2025, a politician leaving the APC for the ADC was leaving one of Africa's most powerful ruling parties for a marginal opposition platform with limited national reach and uncertain primary infrastructure. That calculation has fundamentally changed. The ADC in April 2026 hosted a national convention at Rainbow Event Center in Abuja, despite having no confirmed venue 24 hours before, that drew over 3,000 delegates from all 36 states and the FTC. Peter Obi was there, Atiku Abubakar was there, Kwankwaso attended, Rotimi Amechi serves as the party's national secretary. The three men who between them received 15 million votes in the 2023 presidential election occupied the same convention floor. When a political platform can assemble that concentration of political capital in one room, it has crossed the threshold from marginal opposition to credible national alternative. Politicians making 2027 calculations are not defecting to a fringe party, they are defecting to a coalition that on the basis of the convention alone has demonstrated more national political assembly capacity than any opposition platform Nigeria has seen since the APC was formed in 2013. Reason 5. The internal APC fractures, zero-sum factional wars that leave no room for the sidelined. Within every APC-controlled state affected by the defection wave, there is a specific internal factional conflict that produced the defectors. In Kano, the Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin's political network has been accused of systematically sidelining Gawuna's faction after the 2023 governorship loss, cutting them out of appointments, blocking their access to internal APC primary positioning, and rendering their continued APC membership politically barren. In Zamfara, Marafa's faction has been at war with the Tinubu-aligned Zamfara APC structure since the 2023 elections. In Jigawa, the departing local government chairman and state advisors are communicating a ward-level message. The APC's internal structure in the state is serving a specific network and not providing political returns for those outside it. Nigerian ruling party internal politics are structurally zero-sum in the pre-election period. The allocation of primary tickets, federal appointments, state contractor relationships, and party administrative positions is finite. Every figure who gets a ticket, a position, or an appointment is a figure whose gain is another faction's loss. When a ruling party's internal politics produce a surplus of losing factions, actors who have been shut out of the allocation across multiple cycles, the accumulation of those losses eventually produces a defection moment. The APC in 2026 has produced that accumulation specifically in the Northwest, where the transition from Buhari's patronage distribution to Tinubu's has left a political class that was central to the Buhari-era APC feeling structurally excluded from the Tinubu-era distribution. The institutional enforcement pattern. AFRONEWSHQ will not avoid the most sensitive analytical dimension of the APC defection wave, the relationship between institutional enforcement actions against prominent defectors and the political context of those defections. Two of the most prominent figures in the ADC coalition are currently under legal pressure from federal investigative and prosecutorial agencies. Abubakar Malami, the former AGF, who resigned from the APC in July 2025 and joined the ADC, is facing money laundering charges. On February 27, 2026, Justice Joyce Abdul Malik of the Federal High Court ordered that Malami, his son Abdulaziz, and his wife Asabe be remanded in correctional facilities. The charges involve allegations of improper use of approximately 800 billion naira in recovered funds. Malami has pleaded not guilty. The ADC has publicly described the prosecution as selective enforcement and called for justice not to be applied differently based on political affiliation. Nasir El-Rufai, former governor of Kaduna State, who joined the ADC coalition, is under simultaneous investigation by the EFCC, the ICPC, and the DSS. He has not been charged at the time of this video, but the three-agency convergence on a single political figure represents an extraordinary concentration of federal investigative attention. The ADC has been explicit in its characterization of these enforcement actions. In a formal statement, the party described the handling of Malami and El-Rufai cases as selective and questioned whether the timing and intensity of the legal actions are connected to the political choices these individuals have made.
The analytical position, what the evidence allows us to say. AFRONEWSHQ approaches this dimension of the story with the same analytical precision we apply to everything else. We state what the documented record shows, we distinguish between what is established and what is alleged, and we do not resolve contested questions by adopting the government's framing or the opposition's framing as default. What the documented record shows. Malami and El-Rufai joined the ADC coalition before their legal troubles became the dominant public story. Malami resigned from the APC in July 2025. His court appearance was in February 2026, 7 months after his departure. El-Rufai joined the ADC coalition in mid-2025. The sequencing is relevant. If the enforcement actions were purely retaliatory, you would expect them to follow the defection. The sequencing is consistent with that pattern, though the timing could also reflect the natural pace of ongoing investigations that preceded the defections. What cannot be established without a full evidentiary process, whether the specific charges against Malami or the investigations targeting El-Rufai are legally meritorious independent of the political context. Public officials handling large discretionary funds operate in an environment where the line between legally problematic conduct and politically motivated prosecution is genuinely difficult to establish from the outside. AFRONEWSHQ does not determine guilt or innocence. We note the pattern and its political significance. The enforcement pattern matters for the defection wave's future trajectory in one specific way. It changes the cost-benefit calculation for APC figures who are considering defection but have not yet moved. A potential defector who observes that two of the most prominent ADC figures are under simultaneous federal legal pressure and draws the inference that departure from the APC's institutional protection comes with a legal vulnerability that remaining inside the APC does not, faces a deterrent that the defection wave's momentum must overcome. This is the APC's most powerful retention mechanism, not the offer of positive patronage, but the demonstration that departure from the party's institutional umbrella may expose figures to legal and investigationary consequences that loyalty would have buffered. Whether that deterrent is effective at stopping the remaining defections will determine whether the wave we have documented plateaus or continues to deepen in the months before the 2027 primary window. We are about to get to what the APC is actually doing in response, and the two most important things the defection wave has not yet produced, which are the variables that determine whether this becomes the 2014 PDP collapse or something the APC survives. Drop a comment before we get there. Do you think the APC can stop this defection wave, or has it already lost the north? I want that debate in the comments.
How the APC is reading its own defection problem. The APC's official public response to the defection wave has been consistent and deliberate. Dismissal. The party has described departing politicians as pursuing personal ambitions rather than public interest, has pointed to the simultaneous APC gains from the NNPP's Kano delegation to argue that the net flow of politicians still favors the ruling party, and has hinted at counter-defections in the near future that will reverse the narrative. This is the standard response of a ruling party managing a defection story. Minimize the significance of what is leaving, amplify the significance of what is arriving. But the APC's operational response, distinct from its public communications, reveals a more serious internal assessment of the defection problem. Operational Response 1. The Tinubu Resignation Directive. President Tinubu's directive requiring political appointees with electoral ambitions to resign their positions is presented publicly as a governance measure, an effort to ensure that federal officers are not using their positions to advance partisan electoral activities. In its operational effect, however, the directive also functions as a loyalty filter. It forces every APC political appointee to choose between continued federal appointment with salary, status and access, and electoral ambition. The choice is designed to retain those whose federal appointment is more valuable to them than an electoral 2027 platform, while surfacing those for whom the electoral ambition is primary. The Gawuna resignation complied and immediately led to ADC defection, which is precisely the outcome the directive's political management dimension was designed to manage by formalizing the departure cleanly rather than having serving federal appointees engaged in covert opposition activity. Operational Response 2. The Kano Counter. 14 NNPP lawmakers to APC. On the same day that 8 House of Representatives members defected to the ADC, 14 lawmakers joined the APC, 8 of them from Kano's NNPP delegation. The APC's political management team coordinated this simultaneous counter-movement deliberately. It ensures that the day's legislative defection story is not only an ADC gains narrative, but a mixed narrative in which the APC also demonstrates pulling power. The Kano NNPP lawmakers who moved to the APC represent the Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf faction of Kano politics, the wing that has separated from Kwankwaso. Their movement to the APC is the APC's counter-positioning within Kano. If Kwankwaso takes the Kwankwasia structure to the ADC, the APC absorbs the governor's NNPP network as its Kano replacement. What the APC has not done, the two missing responses. The most analytically revealing aspect of the APC's response is not what it has done, it is what it has not done. There are two responses that a ruling party with genuine confidence in its internal cohesion would make that the APC has visibly not made. The first missing response is a credible policy correction on the economic grievances that every defector has cited. Malami cited hardship and insecurity. Marafa cited Zamfara's federal neglect.
Every grassroots defector in Jigawa and Kano who has given a public statement has pointed to governance performance as the driver. A ruling party that is confident in its governance record would respond to that characterization with documented evidence of delivery. The APC's response to the economic governance critique has largely been defensive and narrative-focused, rather than producing the kind of measurable cost of living improvement that would undercut the opposition's most powerful recruitment argument. The second missing response is a credible internal reform of the party's patronage distribution mechanism in the Northwest. If the defection wave is driven by the structural exclusion of Northwest political networks from Tinubu-era patronage, which is what the evidence most strongly suggests, the durable solution is a recalibration of how federal appointments, contractor relationships, and APC primary ticket allocations are distributed in the affected states. There is no public evidence that the APC has undertaken this recalibration. The party has offered individual co-optation attempts, the kind of one-on-one retention offers that can slow but not stop a structural defection dynamic, but has not addressed the collective patronage exclusion that is producing the pattern.
Why the Northwest concentration is the most important signal. We said we will address why the defection wave is disproportionately concentrated in the Northwest. The answer is electoral arithmetic. The Northwest, Kano, Katsina, Zamfara, Jigawa, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara, is the zone that delivered the highest concentration of Tinubu's 2023 northern vote. Without the Northwest's delivery, Tinubu's 2023 constitutional threshold achievement in the North is mathematically non-repeatable. The defection of the political infrastructure that delivered that vote, Kwankwaso's Kano machine, Marafa's Zamfara network, Gawuna's Kano APC structure, the Jigawa ward-level operators, to the ADC coalition, does not simply add numbers to the opposition. It subtracts the specific mechanism through which the APC converted Northwest political sentiment into constitutional threshold achievement in 2023. A 2027 APC campaign that must rebuild its Northwest delivery infrastructure from a depleted base while simultaneously fighting a consolidated Obi-Kwankwaso-Atiku coalition that has absorbed the departed infrastructure is fighting a categorically more difficult campaign than 2023. In 2023, the opposition was fragmented and the APC's northern machine was intact. In 2027, on the current trajectory, the opposition is consolidating and the APC's northern machine is hemorrhaging. The 5 things to watch in the next 90 days. First, whether the defection wave extends beyond the Northwest into the Southwest or South-South. The current wave is a northern phenomenon. If it crosses geopolitical zones, if APC figures in the Southwest or South-South begin the same calculation, it signals that the structural drivers of the defection are not regionally specific, but are expressions of a broader APC internal condition. Second, whether the ADC portal crisis is resolved before additional major defectors attempt to formally process their membership. Every significant defector who joins an ADC that cannot formally receive them into an INEC-recognized structure creates a defection without operational consequence. The portal resolution is the administrative precondition for the defection wave's political significance to translate into 2027 electoral architecture. Third, whether the Malami prosecution and El Rufai investigations deter additional APC figures from publicly committing to the ADC. The deterrence effect of visible legal pressure on prominent defectors is a real political variable, and it will be measured by whether the next tier of potential defectors makes its move or retreats back to APC loyalty under institutional pressure.
Fourth, the APC's success or failure in retaining Kwankwaso's former governor, Abba Kabir Yusuf, within the APC fold. Yusuf's continued APC membership is the APC's primary counter-positioning in Kano. The argument that while Kwankwaso has gone, the state's governing structure remains in APC hands. If Yusuf holds, the APC has a Kano anchor. If Yusuf's position becomes complicated by the internal APC-NNPP dynamics, the APC loses even that anchor. Fifth, Tinubu's economic trajectory in the next 6 months. Every analyst, every defector, and every APC internal assessment identifies the same variable as the most important determinant of the defection wave's ultimate electoral consequence, whether the economic hardship that is driving opposition sentiment is measurably reduced before the campaign season opens. This is the only lever in the APC's control that can change the structural dynamics rather than simply managing their symptoms. Is this 2014 all over again? The question everyone is asking? The comparison to the 2013-2014 PDP collapse, when governors, senators, ministers, and party heavyweights began the exodus that ended with the APC's 2015 presidential victory, is the reference point that dominates every conversation about the current defection wave. Is the APC in 2026 the PDP of 2014? The honest analytical answer is not yet, but the structural conditions have more in common with 2013-2014 than the APC's official response is willing to acknowledge. The similarities: a ruling party whose internal patronage distribution has produced a surplus of sidelined political networks, a concentrated geographic defection pattern that targets the ruling party's strongest electoral zone, a credible opposition coalition in formation that is absorbing the departing networks, a governance record on economy and security that gives defectors an ideologically defensible public rationale for departure. The differences: the APC retains 28 state governors, a structural hold on state-level governance infrastructure that the PDP had already lost before its 2015 collapse. Tinubu's incumbency advantage, federal patronage flows, INEC's administrative environment, security agency deployment capacity is intact and has not been tested against a fully consolidated opposition. And the ADC's own portal crisis and internal leadership dispute means that the receiving platform is not yet the fully functional national opposition vehicle that the departing politicians needed to be. The APC defection wave of 2026 is the most significant pre-election political realignment in Nigeria since the PDP began losing governors to the APC coalition in 2013. It is concentrated in the ruling party's most critical northern electoral zone. It has attracted figures of the seniority of a former AGF, a two-term governor, a sitting senator, a 2023 governorship candidate that signals a structural assessment by experienced political actors that the APC's 2027 re-election is genuinely uncertain. The defection wave has 5 drivers: patronage disappointment, economic grievance, the 2027 ticket calculation, the ADC's growing credibility, and the APC's internal zero-sum factional wars that are structural, not personal. They will not be resolved by individual co-optation offers or narrative management. They require governance delivery, patronage recalibration, and primary process reform that the APC has not yet demonstrated the internal political will to undertake. The defectors are not leaving the APC because they have found a new ideology. They are leaving because the political mathematics of their individual survival calculations have changed. And in Nigerian politics, when enough people's individual survival calculations point in the same direction simultaneously, the direction they point becomes the direction the country moves. Right now, in the Northwest, in the federal legislature, in the state advisory offices, and in the ward-level structures of Nigeria's most electorally significant states, the calculation is pointing toward the ADC. Whether that direction holds through the 2027 primary window, or whether the APC's counter-strategy, the ADC's portal crisis, and the institutional pressure on prominent defectors reverses the momentum, is the defining political question of the next 12 months. You now have the full defection map: the names, the dates, the 5 structural reasons, the enforcement pattern, the APC's response, and where it all rounds up. Share this analysis. The 2027 election is being decided right now, not in 2027. AFRONEWSHQ. Nigeria deserves better analysis. See you in the next one.